Hi, I'm Brian Bankston. I'm a library assistant at the George Memorial Library, and today we're going to be doing a tutorial on macro photography. Now some of you may be asking, what is macro photography? Macro photography is close-up photography, where you get real close-up. Imagine the still lifes of Renaissance paintings, like that, but even closer zoomed in up. Most people, when they think of macro photography, think of nature, flowers. They all make great subjects. So today we'll do macro photography. So first, what do you need for macro photography? First, you need a camera. It doesn't have to be a DSLR like this one. You can use a point and shoot. You can even use a cell phone camera. These are definitely a little more preferable. You can do a lot of things with DSLRs that you can't do with other cameras. Another thing that's real nice to have is a macro lens. This lens is specially made to do close-up photography. This lens allows the camera to get real close up to the subject and still be able to focus on it. And another thing you're going to need is a nice sturdy tripod. When you're taking photos of a subject real close up, it's going to make camera shake even more noticeable. So you're going to need a real steady tripod to keep your camera still and to not have blurry pictures. And next, another question is, when is the best time to do macro photography? And really the best time is when it's a nice overcast day. Today is not the perfect ideal day, but it's partly cloudy. The sun's covered mostly by clouds. You want to have an overcast day because you don't want harsh shadows. Those don't lend themselves nicely to nice macro pictures. Also, the lack of contrast is going to increase your saturation, which is going to make your colors really pop. All right, so next we're going to discuss your camera settings. So camera settings is going to be for people who have cameras like these where you can manually control the settings. Your ISO you're going to want at either 100 or 200, as low as your camera will go. You may want to bump it up to 400 if it's really dark outside. Your aperture is what you're going to mainly be adjusting, both for the exposure and for the depth of field. And that's how much of the picture is in focus. Now already when you're that close up to the subject, you're going to have a much shallower depth of field. Only part of your picture is going to be in focus, which is going to be your focal point, and the rest of it will quickly fall off into blurriness. Now, some people like that in a macro picture, and you'll see that very often, but you'll adjust your aperture up and down just depending on how much of your photograph you do want in focus. So if you want a lot more in focus, you want a smaller aperture, which is a larger f number, like f9, f15, and if you want a small depth of field with a lot of blurriness to it, f2.8, f.4, or f4. Now, if you have a point and shoot camera where you can't choose, you can't shoot in manual mode, most of those will have on the dial will have a macro mode, and most of the time that's signified by a picture of a flower. So usually you have like a picture of a flower for macro mode, a picture of a mountain for landscape, and a picture of a person for portrait mode. So when you're shooting on a point and shoot camera and want to do macro pictures, shoot it, set it to the macro mode. All right, so for our first subject, since this is macro photography in your backyard, we're here in the George Memorial Library's backyard. And I have found a patch of sunflowers. Sunflowers are great for macro photography. They're nice and big. In the middle of them also is real interesting and lends itself well to macro photography. Now, if you'll see it back there, this is not the perfect day to do it on because there is a bit of a breeze, and you typically want a still day so that the flowers remain still, but we'll see if we can capture one. All right, so what I've done is set up in front of these sunflowers. I have my camera on the tripod. The macro lens I'm using is a 60mm macro lens. It has a fixed focal length, so it doesn't zoom in or out. So if I want to get closer to it, I simply move my camera closer to it, and then I wait for the flowers to stop moving from the lens. enough to shine. There. All right. All right. Another great thing to look for when you're doing macro photography is texture. Interesting textures can be very eye appealing. They can make for some very interesting pictures. Now, pictures of the textures themselves, a lot of times aren't very interesting. You need to add something else to the subject to contrast it. You can see over here, I have this tree stump with some very interesting textures. So I placed a couple little props onto it. This piece of little gadget that we made with our 3D printer here at the library, as well as a little tiny pine cone we found. Created a little composition using it, and now I'm going to take the picture of it, and you'll see the end result. For this, I'm using, I tried to take my tripod down to its lowest settings to try to get as close as possible. All right, as you can see on the picture, it's a very interesting composition with a lot of different varying colors and varying textures. All right, another thing that we're going to try, which I have never tried before, is shooting a macro picture through water. Now, as you can see down here, what I've done is I've put a seashell into the bottom of this fountain. And one of the things I'm hoping is that since there is a breeze, that the water, is moving. You can see the ripples. And I want to see what effect that has on the picture. So what I've done is I've taken off my macro lens. So if you don't have a macro lens, another thing you can do is use a telephoto lens. Instead of getting real close to the subject, backing up and then zooming in with the telephoto lens, and that works just fine. So let's see how this turns out. Get it in focus. I decide I want to zoom in even more. Get it in focus. And when you're doing these, be experimental. Keep moving around, finding different compositions. You never know, what you're going to find interesting, especially when you look at the finished product. Oops. And many times, a lot of these macro pictures that are some of your best ones may just be happy accidents. All right, and the last thing I wanted to show y'all is I took some macro pictures in my backyard, so I just want to show you a few of them and kind of go over what I like about them. This first one is a macro picture of my cucumber, a flower from my cucumber plant. I just want to show you this one because it's a good example of how to do composition. If you'll notice, the flower is not centered. Most of the time when you do pictures like these, you don't want your subject to be in the very center of the photograph. We have what we call in photography the rule of thirds. So if you divide the picture plane into thirds, both horizontally and vertically, you want to place the most interesting part of the picture in wherever one of those lines intersect. So usually, bottom third or right third, and it makes for a more interesting picture. And this last picture I'm going to show you is a good example of just getting lucky. I was taking pictures of one of my flowers, and right before I snapped the picture, this honeybee came right into the frame. And you can either get lucky, or you can just wait there for hours with your camera pointed at the flower and just wait for that honeybee to come, or hopefully the photo gods will be nice to you and you'll get lucky. So that's it for this one. Next month will be doing portraits on a budget. I know I had said I would do that next, but this came up. This has turned out to be the perfect time to do the macro one. So the next month we'll be doing portraits on a budget, and then a month after that we're gonna be doing pet photography. So hope y'all have a good day, and hope y'all are staying safe out there.